I'm Connor Wold, and welcome back to another episode of Forgotten Oscar Films. And this week, we're going to be looking at the 1958 class of films, a film that, similar to last week, was very much a melodrama. If you want to learn more about melodrama, see that episode. But this week, it's going to be a very interesting year, a film that, similarly also to last week, where it was sort of a massive sweep, and the other films maybe have been more forgotten than preferred. So if you're new to the series, what I do every single week is I look at a classic film that's been nominated for Best Picture, at the Oscars, that I believe has been forgotten, one that has sort of been lost to cultural context, and one that hasn't been as well remembered or well recommended to you in sort of this modern day, at least from a 20-year-old's viewpoint. But I also look at my thoughts about the film, because I'm seeing most of these films for the very first time. I also try to answer that central question as to why it hasn't been held up. So I try to do a little bit of history if you're an Oscar fan. The Oscar season's going to be coming up pretty soon. I'm going to have videos for that. But I do sort of I think if you're an Oscar fan, you'll enjoy the show because it has the Oscar history to it. But if you're more a fan of my analytical stuff, like something like Masters of Controlled Chaos, you'll see some more of the analytical aspects to it, especially in this episode. Because I have some thoughts about the film. So starting off with the first nominee, it's going to be the Best Picture winner, which is Gigi. This is a film that 1 year later would have been sort of surpassed in terms of its nomination, in terms of its wins, but at the time this was the most amount of wins for any movie ever, with a total of 9. It's also sort of pulled off of Lord of the Rings, where it won for every nomination. It won, it never lost a single category, although it wasn't nominated for any acting. It wasn't nominated at all for any of the acting awards. And theoretically, if it were nominated for acting, it probably wouldn't have won, but similar to Lord of the Rings in that way. It didn't get the acting noms, but it got all those technicals, and then director, screenplay, and Best Picture. But this is the time Gigi winning 9 awards at the Oscars, sort of this big, large sweep. Theoretically, it should make sense that if you're winning if this is the Best Picture, this is your favorite movie of the year, the director shouldn't split like they do sort of modern today. It should be your best director, and it should be your favorite actor, and should be, if this is your favorite movie, it should have the best technical awards and all those things, if it's nominated, that is. But very much today, that's not the case. We see a movie like Spotlight getting 2 wins, including Best Picture and Best Screenplay, or Green Book, I believe getting just 3, and then including Best Picture, and then Moonlight, similarly a situation, a 3. So it's either 2 or 3 now as the sort of preferential ballot happens, but especially at this time with the years 1958 and then 1959 and then 1960 with Gigi, Ben-Hur, and then West Side Story. It was just a sweep after sweep after sweep, with Gigi getting 9 wins, Ben-Hur getting 11, and West Side Story getting 10 wins. And these are some of the all-time highest that we'll maybe never even see again. So this is a very critical time where if they love a movie, the Oscars really love the movie. I guess it must have been either a year or 2 years before. You have something like Bridge on the River Kwai, which won 7 Oscars. So this is sort of a period in time where if they like the movie, they really like the movie. Lawrence of Arabia in 1962, of course, winning 7 Oscars as well, sort of has a large sweep. Not on the length of something like Ben-Hur, but still up there. Very much something we wouldn't see today. So very interesting that this is a film that's in that Oscar history, because I'm not sure if people love Lawrence of Arabia. That's some of people's favorite movies of all time. West Side Story, you could argue, is the best movie musical of all time. But Gigi, I've never really heard a passionate defense of it, so I could have done that as another Best Picture winner, but I think for the most part it has, I'd already seen it, and for the most part it has well respected, at least, and people enjoy it. And while maybe in the bottom tier half of the Best Picture winners, definitely maybe not the worst. Another nominee here we had is Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. This is by Elmer Gantry, director, who we talked about last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago now. Elmer Gantry. This is a film that is recently playing in my local multiplex as sort of a classic film series, so I don't think that's a film that's been forgotten. It also stars Paul Newman and Liz Banks, who are just sort of these 2 all-time great movie stars, and I think that these are arguably the height of their careers, and it was some of their best performances. Tennessee Williams is another playwright that sort of sustained. I'm going to be seeing Night of the Iguana soon, a Tennessee Williams play with Clive Owen on Broadway, so that will be a really unique experience. So if Tennessee Williams plays are still being put on today, attracting sort of movie star talent on Broadway, I still think that this relevance, especially Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, maybe his best film adaptation, should be sort of well remembered, and so it is. Next nominee here we have is The Defiant Ones. This is from director Stanley Kramer. We talked a bit more on the Guess Who's Coming to Dinner episode. He's one of those guys like a Fred Zinnemann or even sort of a Richard Brooks who gets all these nominations and is well respected at the time, but as time passes has sort of been more and more forgotten, and guys like Alfred Hitchcock and Otto Preminger instead get, and Billy Wilder and William Wyler get more of the love compared to these guys. Despite being sort of well loved and well appreciated and well respected at their time, this is sort of one of the highest critical movies of the year. Critics were very high on it, starring Sidney Poitier. So at this time, it was very much another race movie, dealing with sort of the black and white tensions that were occurring at the time. And seems and sort of as progressive in a lot of ways. This is a time in Hollywood that it's not, we look back at it now and it's kind of maybe dated, and this is clearly not a great depiction of race or African Americans in the States. But I still think that at the time, next week when we talk about Sayonara, this is a sort of a trend in a lot of ways where they're trying to reveal different cultures in their sort of Americanized way, but still trying to understand them, and the effort should be commended more than anything. However, I haven't seen The Defiant Ones, so I can't judge it based on its quality. And then another nominee here I could have gone with is Auntie Mame. This was a bit of a surprise nomination because it didn't get a DGA nomination and it didn't get a WGA nomination. It was a successful musical, especially the later half of the year, but people thought that Gigi was sort of the musical slot was already taken, so they may have gone with sort of another, maybe a period piece or another more sophisticated drama, I guess you could say. But instead, this one sort of had a bit of a surprise nomination, also by director Martin DaCosta, who we talked about on the Music Man episode. He only made 3 films, this being his first, and then he sort of eventually went back to the stage at being an acclaimed stage director, and I think that's where he's maybe most known for, and less so for the movies, but still very well respected at this time. But eventually the film I went with is Separate Tables, from director Del McMahon, who just won an Oscar for Marty, even though he just transitioned from TV into movies with Marty, then made a couple more movies, then made Separate Tables here. It was actually a success on the night compared to, Gigi didn't sweep everything because this actually got 2 of the 4 acting awards. So I believe in best, it was David Niven for Best Lead Actor, and I guess won Best Supporting Actress as well. And so transition to my thoughts. I think this is sort of well positioned at the time, and as we look back, we've talked about it before, as a film that is acclaimed for its performances and less so maybe the film itself. This still happens today, where you have a big movie star or an ensemble of movie stars that have great performances and that sort of get nominated for that, and people respect the film maybe a little bit less. Sometimes it's like The Master, for example, which is a movie I love, and I think it's gotten a lot more appreciation. But at the time, it got sort of Amy Adams, Joaquin Phoenix, and why am I blanking on his name? Philip Seymour Hoffman, excuse me. One of the best performances of the 21st century. Incredible performance in that film. But they sort of thought that was that kind of movie, but maybe more apt examples were something like Jamie Foxx and Ray. I could see maybe Bohemian Rhapsody being that sort of similar situation with Rami Malek, or Gary Oldman in Darkest Hour, even though it's a movie I love. I think people will mostly remember the performance from it. Iron Lady, which is sort of seen as an average movie, but a great Meryl Streep performance. This always happens, and will continue to happen, where the actor is so good, they love the actor and her performance, or his performance so much, that they want to also nominate the film for Best Picture or Best Screenplay or whatnot. Because, of course, they like the movie, but maybe they like the performance, and that's sort of what held up the movie, and that the movie in general is sort of average. And these are winners, including, those are all winners I listed. Julianne Moore and Still Alice, I think, could be a similar example. But this happens where there's sort of a great screenplay, or a well sort of juicy, sort of dialogue heavy, actory screenplay, and because the actors are so much the show of the Oscars in a lot of ways, they want to nominate these films that highlight their best work. But really my thoughts on the film is that I thought it was complex at times, but also sort of simple and degrading at times, almost like a serious clue. Very sort of stuffy British period drama in a lot of ways. Very 40s, despite coming out in the 50s, but it's beautifully shot, gorgeously lit, incredible costume design. The layout of the hotel is very beautiful as well, and there's essentially these two sort of dueling storylines. One between Burt Lancaster and Rita Hayworth, and then the other with Major Pollock, I believe. His sort of sexual abuse storyline that involved many of the other sort of hotel players. And the film does a great job, actually, I think, weaving between these different storylines. However, I think that you'll either relate to one over the other, which sort of makes it hard to recommend, which maybe is the reason why it hasn't held up. This is a film that you either like one or the other. Maybe you like both, but maybe you don't like either. So it's either a mixed bag for you, or you don't like either, or you really like it. So I would say maybe only 75% of the audience maybe could be mixed or worse on it, like I was, where I really enjoyed the Burt Lancaster story, but I thought the other story, especially today, has not aged well at all. The ending really sort of was off-putting and not necessarily incoherent, but inconsistent with, I guess, maybe modern day values in terms of, especially after the Me Too movement, which sort of deal with sexual abuse and sexual harassment, that this film sort of disregards in a lot of ways. I was really disappointed because I was kind of enjoying sort of these certain aspects, and when they went this way with the story, I just felt it was totally out of character and didn't make a lot of sense, and really tainted the version of film of me, unfortunately. And I think maybe that's the reason why it hasn't been as well remembered. And I think that just this was a big deal at the time, based off a play adaptation of a two-act play, different two stories, and I think the director does a great job combining these two, but ultimately I think that there's still very much like places in the heart, a clear divide between two movies, and either you like one or you don't like the other, but if you like one a lot, you don't want to see the other, and it's just you're just waiting for the other storyline to get put there, and then you're thinking, well, why don't we just spend more time on this storyline, or just pick one? Or sometimes those sort of dueling storylines can frustrate me, and in this example, I think applies. But that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you comment below. Let me know some of your favorite movies of all time, or favorite 50s movies of all time, favorite Tennessee Williams plays of all time. Love to hear your comments down below. That's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, stay tuned.